And wherever you're watching from around the world, thanks indeed for joining us. Let's get things started now in Australia, where Wikileaks founder Julian Assange is finally home for the first time in 14 years. He arrived in Australia after he was freed by a United States court under a plea deal. His plane landed in Canberra on earlier today, hours after the 52-year-old pleaded guilty in a court to a charge of espionage related to obtaining and publishing U.S. military secrets. Last week, he signed a deal with the U.S. that would see him plead guilty to one charge instead of the 18 he was originally facing. And emotional moments for he and his family, you could say, as he embraced his wife and raised his feet in triumph. Meanwhile, a handful of supporters waved and cheered as he drove away from the airbase. Assange's arrival ends a saga in which he spent more than 5 years in a British high-security jail and 7 years in asylum at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, battling extradition to Sweden on sexual assault allegations, and to the US, where he faced 18 criminal charges. Now, those charges stemmed from Wikileaks' release in 2010 of hundreds of thousands of classified U.S. military documents on Washington's wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, one of the largest breaches of secret information in U.S. history. Australian Prime Minister Mr. Anthony Albanese said he was pleased with Assange's return to Australia following his release. Well, earlier on, before Julian Assange's plane landed, his wife was speaking on how the family was monitoring his flight. She calls his release, quote, history in making. Take a listen to Stella Assange.
Faced a very, very hard uphill battle when Julian was kidnapped from the embassy in 2019. It was incredibly hostile. There had been so many such an intense campaign. We know a lot about that campaign now, by the way, but an intense smearing campaign against him to basically rob him of the support that he has today, to rob him of that possibility by constantly attacking him, undermining him, attacking his reputation with lies and smears. And since then, a lot of time has passed. 5 years he's had to pay with 5 years of his life, the best years of his life, when, not 5 years, I mean 5 years in Belmarsh, but 14 years. He was in his 30s when I met him, and he was, I think, 38 or 39 when he published the Chelsea Manning leaks. And here we are 14 years on. I mean, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there are factions within the United States and other countries, allied countries, that want Julian, that didn't want this, that didn't want Julian freed ever. They wanted to make him a continuous example to basically bully everyone else into submission. And they're angry today. But the vast, overwhelming majority of humanity is celebrating this moment.
And one of Julian's lawyer from his legal team, which has been instrumental to his release, thanked the Australian government for their support, saying the Wikileaks founder had triumphed against all odds. Jennifer Robinson and Mr. Assange's US lawyer, Barry Pollack, addressed the press outside a courthouse in Saipan earlier today. The hearing's location in Saipan, the largest of the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. Commonwealth, was reportedly due to its proximity to his home of Australia and his own opposition to traveling to continental United States. To other stories now, we continue in the U.S., where Thursday is a big day in the country. U.S. President Joe Biden and former U.S. President Donald Trump face off at the first ever presidential debate for this year's election, after facing each other in two 2020 debates. Both men seem set for a rematch as they seek to pull ahead in the 2024 presidential race. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are making history as the two oldest candidates ever to seek the U.S. presidency at age 81 and 78, respectively. On Thursday, the current Democratic president and his Republican predecessor will face off in Atlanta, Georgia for the first of two debates ahead of November's vote, offering Americans a rare split-screen comparison of the two men's physical and mental strength. And away from that, it's been 2 years since the historic overturning of the monumental women's right to choose law. As a result, the Biden-Harris administration has implemented various initiatives to address inadequate health care for Black women and women in low-income communities where many are experiencing reproductive health crisis. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Baird had an interview with White House Director of Gender Policy, Jennifer Klein. Take a listen.
Thank you so much for your work around gender equality and gender policy and part of the White House's initiatives most recently. We know there's been a lot of new announcements, and we just want to spend a little bit of time talking about actually what's come out of this and what many can expect.
So I think as we hit this second anniversary of the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe versus Wade, I think it's important to start with the impact. So 27 million women in this country of reproductive age, so that's about 1 in 3 women of reproductive age, live in a state with an abortion ban. And in nearly all of those states, doctors could be charged with a felony for providing care, for doing their jobs. And we've seen these devastating circumstances of women being turned away from emergency rooms, forced to go to court to get care, or forced to travel hundreds, if not thousands of miles to get care. So what we've been doing, the president was quite clear when the Dobbs decision came down that the only way to replace a fundamental constitutional right, which is what we lost when Roe was overturned after nearly 50 years. By the way, unprecedented. That had never happened before in American history. And the only way to actually replace the rights that were lost is to pass a federal law, which the president has made entirely clear that as soon as that bill reaches his desk, he would sign it. But he also asked the Gender Policy Council, me, and really everyone in the administration to do whatever he can. So he has issued, 3 executive orders and 1 presidential memorandum, which has allowed us to really do a lot in the 2 years since the Dobbs decision came down. So just to give a few examples, we've helped to ensure that women receive the care they need in an emergency under a federal law, which is called the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. We've protected access, really expanded access to safe and effective medication abortion, which is FDA approved, safe and effective. It's been approved for nearly more than 20 years. We've defended in court, the Department of Justice has defended in court the right to travel for medical care. We've supported reproductive health care access for veterans and for service members. We've expanded access to affordable contraception and in vitro fertilization. And finally, we've strengthened privacy protections for doctors and for patients.
Just thank you so much for that clarity, just for, give us some idea about what's happening, especially with the women of color. We know that traditionally we spoke to you all before regarding some of the access issues. And we know that in lower income communities, a lot of times there's not access to appropriate care. What are some of the health risks and actually putting some women at risk for some of these laws that are in place across the country?
Yeah, thank you for asking, because that's such an important question. In the states with abortion bans, we are seeing the highest rates of maternal mortality. And this is an issue that, as you well know, was of concern before Dobbs, and Dobbs has made it that much worse because of all of these extreme abortion bans. We also are seeing, clinics closing. So whether that's in rural areas where, people are really having difficulty accessing care. And it's, by the way, not only abortion care, it's the full range of essential healthcare services, things like pap smears and breast cancer screening, and very basic primary preventive care. And so that is a real concern. And, that's why this administration really, and the vice president has been, again, a leader on this issue, trying to ensure that we are doing everything we can to improve maternal care throughout the country, particularly for Black women and other women of color who, as you point out, have historically been most at risk.
Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Baird there on that interview. To other stories now. In Kenya, where President William Ruto has considered to pressure, saying he will not be signing the controversial finance bill. He announced that at a media briefing in Nairobi after weeks of protests from mainly youths' demonstrations against the taxes the bill had imposed. Well, President Ruto said the decision was also accepted by the lawmakers who had passed the bill on Tuesday. At least 13 protesters are dead and dozens injured as police opened fire on protesters on Tuesday. The Parliament building was breached, a section set ablaze, and the ceremonial maze symbolizing the authority of the legislature was stolen as demonstrations against new tax proposals escalated. In addition, in an address on Tuesday evening, President Ruto warned he would do everything to curb attempts to undermine the security and stability of the country. Protests have been ongoing for days now against the unpopular finance bill, which includes several tax rises, but they escalated to a dangerous pitch on Tuesday as MPs passed an amended version of the bill.
An otherwise legitimate expression of the fundamental rights and freedoms of assembly, demonstration, picketing, and petitioning of public authorities by a section of law-abiding citizens of the Republic of Kenya was infiltrated and hijacked by a group of organized criminals. Today's events mark a critical turning point on how we respond to grave threats to our national security. I assure the nation that the government has mobilized all resources at the nation's disposal to ensure that a situation of this nature will not recur again at whatever cost. I have directed all the organs of our national security to deploy measures to thwart any attempt by dangerous criminals to undermine the security and stability of our country. I hereby put on notice the planners, financiers, orchestrators, and abettors of violence and anarchy that the security infrastructure established to protect our republic and its sovereignty will be deployed to secure the country and restore normalcy.
We'll get in some perspective in just a moment as regards to the demonstrations in Kenya with this latest address by President William Ruto. But over in Rwanda, where President Paul Kagame says his vision is to do what the people request of him, which is the only promise he has been making to them since his campaign kicked off on Saturday. On Tuesday, the president was in the particular district in the region where thousands of FPR supporters gathered at a campaign rally to cheer on him. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Amar Chubani tells us more.
It is mid-morning in Nyarugenge, a district in the Rwandan capital Kigali, and already the crowd is hyped as it anticipates the arrival of the presidential candidate of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the FPR, President Paul Kagame. Local musicians perform their most popular songs to the crowds. The crowds in turn gyrate to the beat. President Kagame enters the campaign ground. The president anchors his address on references to lions. He tells the Rwandan people they're all lions who will develop Rwanda. His message touches all aspects of family life, taking time to address the youth. He tells them they will grow into bigger lions and that more lions will come from them. He assures them they're never alone on the journey to Rwanda's development. He promised to listen to the needs of the people and would not care what critics outside of Rwanda think about them. He encourages them to live in peace with people as long as they're respected and valued.
And with that, the campaign here at Nyamirambo in Nyurugengen district is over. President Kagame again not promising the people anything, but saying this time they will continue to do what the people want.
Rwandans have come from far and wide to show their support for President Kagame. Christine Otiwairu is at the rally with her daughters Stella and Lyra. They've been following developments in Rwanda before and after the genocide.
We feel so excited about our president because he has done so much for our country.
I was born 3 years after the genocide, so it was still very fresh, and I think I was privileged to witness how change came about. We know that, he's the right person for us once more, and we're just so lucky that he's even willing to do it again.
Absolutely. Do you ever think of leaving Rwanda?
I don't think I ever thought about that. I actually don't live here. I live in the States, but I'm only there for studies, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to come back eventually.
When are you coming back?
I'm coming back next year.
Will you be around to vote?
I will be around to vote.
The campaign is over, and people disperse to prepare for the next one. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
All right, let's take you back to our earlier reporting in Nairobi, Kenya, where demonstrations have been ongoing for over a week now. But a second address by the president of that country, Mr. William Ruto, just some moments ago has gotten our attention. Let's cross over live to Freetown, Sierra Leone, where international affairs analyst Philip Emery is standing by to speak with us as quickly as we can. Philip, let's begin with President William Ruto's seemingly bowing to pressure, saying he concedes and will not sign this very controversial bill. What do you make of this development?
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you. He does not have much of a choice, actually. He does not have much of a choice. These people have come out. They are saying they are unsatisfied. They are not happy. They need something better than this. I mean, COVID-19 broke them down. And the wars around the world is not doing them any better. And we see how the inflation is going up everywhere in Africa, and of course in Kenya also. And then you want to raise taxes? No, it's not right. It's not appropriate. It's not even doable. Why am I saying this also in regards to what Ruto is saying and how he has to make this happen? He is, to me, the playboy of the Western world. And you can correct me if you think otherwise. He is the playboy of the Western world. He has shown himself to be the one that is speaking for Africa. He's the one pushing for, he's the one who visited the United States. He welcomed the King of England. I think Kenya was the first place the King of England came to. Right now, he has sent 200 troops today, and he's going to be sending 1,000 troops to Haiti to help in the unrest there. So he's showing himself to be the one that is saving Africa, the one that is bringing Africa to the forefront and all of that. So for that reason, he has to once again show the world that he's not a bad leader, that he's a good leader, he's a leader that listens to. If he's a leader that listens to his people, then definitely he has to think about it again, and then he has to roll back his plan on the finance bill.
I mean, great analysis, because some experts believe that indeed Ruto could be dancing to the tune of the West as regards some of the policies from the International Monetary Funds and such institutions and all of that, as you rightly mentioned. But what does this say about the power of the people? I mean, we saw the address last night, and just a moment ago, a different body language from Mr. Ruto. I wonder what this says about the power of the people. And maybe just to add to that question is the fact that there are a lot of professional bodies in Kenya, but it took young people to stand up for and perhaps what they have referred or regarded as injustice and all of that.
All right, so what I'll say to that is, first of all, if you lose your voice because no one is hearing you, you have lost the whole battle. All right, so because no one is listening, you just don't stop talking, you keep talking. And this time around, these are young people, strong people, they are Gen Zs, according to what we are seeing online. They're all very young, and they're saying, we don't want this, we cannot take this. And let's not forget that every time people go out, step out to protest, they have to count the cost. Their lives can go. They could lose a limb. Anything could happen to them. They're missing their classes. They're missing on their livelihood and all of that. So they're counting the cost and seeing that it is better that I go there than to sit back home or go to my workplace and then my future is mortgaged or is eroded. All right, so that's why the young people are stepping out. And I think it's important that they did. And it's showing us in Africa more. I know it started a long time ago. We've had these kind of things happen in Africa, but we've not seen so much results. We saw what happened in Nigeria with, I think it was in 2020, with the NSAS. And look at this happening here. All right, well, the young people failed in Nigeria, so to say, where we would not say.
All right. Philip, again, we're having issues with your audio, but it's perhaps a fine place to leave it. And just we hope that indeed this would be given a serious attention, because we understand that Mr. Ruto, for instance, now he has decided to make a U-turn. But then again, there's the sad aspect of that story. Over 15 persons were confirmed dead, young persons, I must say, and there's the question as to the justification of using live ammunitions at such gatherings. But it's a fine place to leave it. Philip, Emma, as always, thanks indeed for speaking with us.
Thank you very much.
You're watching The World Today, and we are due for another break. But when we come back, welcome back now. The Transatlantic Military Alliance, NATO, has appointed Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte as its next chief, entrusting him with the leadership role during a critical time for European security amid Russia's war in Ukraine. Mr. Rutte's appointment on Wednesday was a formality after his only rival for the post, Romanian President Klaus Iohannis, announced last week that he had quit the race, having failed to gain traction. Ambassadors from the alliance, 32 members took the decision at the meeting at the NATO headquarters in Brussels. NATO said in a statement he will take over from Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on October 1. Mr. Rutte gained early support from key members of the alliance, including the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, after declaring his interest in the post last year.
Ugly dog contest, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. We have quite a show.
8-year-old Pekingese. This is his 5th show. I retired about 5 years ago.
And finally on the program, we've heard about beauty pageants, but have you ever heard about the world's ugliest dog competition? Yes, you heard right. Well, that event took place in the United States over the weekend. An 8-year-old brown dog named Wild Thang was crowned as the world's ugliest dog, edging out 8 other competitors. Wild Thang has competed 5 times in previous world's ugliest dog competitions, but this is his first win. The dog also bagged $5,000 for landing the title. The world's ugliest dog competition has been held for nearly 50 years to celebrate the imperfections that make all dogs special and unique.
I mean, it definitely is a very special group of people. Everybody that I've met here is really passionate about this cause, and you can tell they all have good hearts, and it really is a fantastic way to bring awareness to adoption and rescue.
It's an opportunity to show the differently able dogs, you know, that they can have full, happy lives.
Well, so if you have a dog, yours could also fetch you a whopping $5,000. And that's a wrap on the program, everyone. Thanks indeed for watching. I am Kelly Egiga. Bye now.